I think we're live. Hello everybody, this is Aisha Sherzai. Thank you so much for being here with us again this evening. So we're here today with a new topic, and the topic that we want to discuss is health at home. Yeah. Basically the idea, and you and I talk about this all the time in our community talks, that health actually starts at home, not in the clinic, not in the hospital. Well, you know, under different circumstances, you get help there, but health and prevention starts at home.
Absolutely. We get a false sense of security, a false sense of achievement when we go to a clinic and we do the obligatory blood pressure check once every 3 to 6 months.
Knees, look at the eyes.
Exactly. Follow my fingers, and then we think we did it. That's it. Now we go home and everything's done. That's not the case. Health starts at home, and we wanted to make it a series because it's everywhere around the home. Mm-hmm. So it's in your living room, it's in your kitchen, it's in the bedroom, bathroom. So that's critical, exactly. So we wanted to kind of start with the general feeling of how you should feel around health.
Exactly, and one of the most important thing, if not the most important thing to create around the house is to set the mood. And yes, we're not just talking about putting candles and lights everywhere, that helps, but generally setting the mood around the house that helps you create a beautiful environment that you can exist in, and something that can actually promote health.
Correct. So I put an article up today about stress and mood, and I hope some of you guys read it in our Facebook page. And we talk about this in our brain healthy living
Yes,
protocols, which is, it's not, the word stress is misused. We have the concept of stress, but it's some stress, some tension, some forms of a negative mood, struggle, exactly, can actually be productive. In fact, it's not about the struggle itself, but how you deal with it that's important.
Absolutely.
Owning it is important.
Studies have shown that stress, not struggling, can actually build your brain, like make your brain larger in volume.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly.
But it's also very important to understand, well, of course, not all stress is bad, but it's the type of stress that matters.
Correct.
So, you know, I think it's quite appropriate for, you know, the political scenario right now, regardless of what political affiliations anyone may have, and we're not really going to go into those details, but it's important for us to recognize stress. I think that's one of the most important steps towards it, to recognize it, owning it, and not shunning away any negativity. You know, a lot of us, when we talk about stress and stress management, we usually say words like, oh, I turn off the TV, I listen to music, I turn my back around, and I don't think about it. Exactly. Well, most of the time you can't really help avoiding it. It's around you.
In fact, it can be harmful.
When you avoid stress, it's weird. It always has a way of coming back to you.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
And you get more stressed
exactly,
because you're trying to run away from it, but it keeps on coming.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So to speak to that, why? Because the stress is there. Once you've seen it, once it's become part of your life, it's going to be there. But it goes into your subconscious, and it actually takes a life of its own. It never goes away unless you address it. You address it well, identify it, name it, and find a way to control it and own it. Outside of that, it actually becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's a concept called sublimation. It turns into a different thing.
Yes.
And you're sitting around talking about a TV show, and then all of a sudden there's a fight about the TV show. Not that we have any of that in our household. No, not at all.
Or do we?
But it's owning it that's critical. And in fact, what's been shown is that when people actually stress their mind, not in a bad way, but the idea of challenge is a form of stress. Challenging yourself with jobs, challenging yourself with games, challenging yourself with achievements. These are all a form of stress, but it's your stress. Mm-hmm. You've owned it, you've made the goal for it, and you've made the direction. So that's why it's different. And it's been shown, like Alex said, to grow your brain, literally and physically grow your brain. And that's one of the things we tell people.
Sorry, go ahead.
Everyone has stress. They just don't really know how to control it, at least most people.
Correct.
And everyone has stress. It's not like we're trying to add stress, but we're saying that you have to control it in order for it to become a good thing.
Yes.
Exactly.
So how do you control it? And according to some of the research that's out there, there's a very fine line between when the stress becomes a bad stress. A stress becomes a bad stress and starts having negative effect on your health when you don't understand it very well, when it is beyond your control. I know you said
Correct.
something about control. And by control, we basically mean your awareness of its elements, your capacity to not let it affect you, or at least not stop you from understanding it better.
Correct, correct. I mean, right before this, we had a little bit of a stress with somebody. We're not going to name who.
No.
But the idea of actually acknowledging it and how did we deal with it? I'm not saying it was with you, but how do we deal with those stresses?
Well, what we do is just worst case scenario, we get kind of angry, and then we realize that was a bad thing, and then we all apologize. Best case scenario, we at the moment that something bad happens or something wrong happens, we think about it and relax and just say, okay, this is normal. It's just another thing. Let's control our stress. And let's just not do it anymore.
We do breathing exercises to help us, like we inhale and exhale. That really helps us get rid of the stress. And
mindfulness and meditation.
So before jumping to a conclusion or before making an emotional decision, one has to step back and look at the totality of the situation and then assess and then act on it.
And there's a book called Emotional Intelligence. A lot of you have heard of it, but the crux of it is this. We are all emotional beings, no matter who it is. Any job, any level, we're all emotional beings. The limbic system, the emotional part of the brain, always takes control. It's powerful. It's very small, yet it takes control much faster than the frontal lobe and the parts of the brain that actually are supposed to make good judgment.
That's why it's easier to get angry than solve the problem.
Exactly. So the way to overcome it is to have the language ready, to know your own triggers, to know each other's triggers, to know what to do as soon as you detect or identify those triggers, and whenever you feel the stress, know what to do. So as you saw, Sophie already had the language. Oh, and whenever I feel stress, take a deep breath, do the breathing exercises, take some time. Those are actually processes that circumvent or make sure that the bad thing doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
That's the preparation. That's the language that's there that makes sure that we don't do the bad thing.
Go ahead.
Well, basically, think about it this way. If you get angry, then the other person gets angry, and then a fight starts, and then something worse could happen than just the small. And what you just did earlier that started the fight sounds like a little petty thing. So just take that all into the big picture instead of all collapsing it into one small thing like, oh, they didn't do this to me. Oh no, let's get angry. This is not good.
That's very important.
Yeah, so that was Sophie's thesis. I think it came from personal experience from 10 minutes ago. But nonetheless, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Being prepared, having the language ready, and also some other tools. There was a time that we used to make fun of things like mindful breathing and meditation. But it really does help. The mindful breathing, for me, definitely, it's remarkable.
And also, just having a very straightforward conversation. For those of us who have kids, we find it very helpful to talk about the problems of the day. Even sometimes when kids don't have the capacity to understand it very well, they understand feelings very well. So discussing the feelings so that everybody's aware of what's really going on, what the situation is, instead of hiding it from them. And that sets a beautiful mood at home.
Absolutely. So in summary, we think this is the most important subject matter. Sometimes people, they expect us to come on this chat, and even at work, and they want us to talk about specific medications and things of that nature. But I think it's really important for us to talk about the things that we can do at home. If I had the choice of being the Secretary of Health and Human Services, of what I would do, all my focus, all the funding would go around things that you can actually do at home.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about some of those other things in a future series. But what the first element is the language of controlling the mood, because with mood comes depression, or the reverse, which is happiness and joy and positive reaction. With the mood comes proactivity and control of outcomes such as exercise and eating well and all that. So that's where we start, and hopefully in the next few videos we'll tell you about some of the other elements that we work with in the home. Absolutely. We actually go to some of the patients' homes and give them some guidance.
And to know that negative moods or negativity is not always bad. Sometimes it actually creates understanding of oneself. It helps us create goals in the future. So not to shy away from it and actually try to process it as much as possible. Well, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being with us this evening. Like we said, this is the beginning of a multiple part series about creating a healthy home, a home that is good for the brain and good for the body. During the next few episodes, we will talk about creating healthy kitchens, healthy living rooms, even healthy restrooms, and how you can incorporate brain healthy living in your homes.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we'll see you later.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.